Listen to yourself. Of course stories of outlanders sound outlandish. Lands where everyone walks on stones, though? What do? Hop from stone to stone, avoiding the soil? Zeth glanced at their family stone. It peeked up from the earth like a spren's eye, staring unblinking at the sky. Vibrant red fringe, a splash of ocean. I think, he said to me, that there must be I think it's hard to hold that stone on stone. That's why they get desensitized. Where do the plants grow then? She asked. Everyone always talks about how the outside is full of dangerous plants that eat people. There must be soil. True. Maybe the terrible vines he'd heard of, stretched out long, like the tentacles you might find on a shamble, or one of the beasts that lived in the tidal pools a short distance down the coast. I heard, Elid said, that people constantly kill each other out there. That nobody adds, they only subtract. Who makes the food then? He said. They must eat each other. Or maybe they're always starving. You know how the men on the ships are. They never slow toward the ocean, though it could be seen in the wind of sunless days. Which was at the very edge of a broad plain, excellent for grazing. This part of Shinovar wasn't crowded. It was a day or two between towns. He heard that in the north there were towns everywhere. The grassland bordered the southeastern coast of Shinovar. Clearmount and Zeth's family homestead was in an honored location near the monastery of the Stone Wards, which was up along the mountain ridge. In Zeth's estimation, this was the perfect place to live. You could see the mountains, yet also visit the ocean. You could walk for days across the vibrant green prairie, never seeing another person. During the early months of the year, they grazed the animals here near their homestead. In the mid-months, they would take the sheep up the slopes, seeking the untouched and overgrown grass there. He bent down next to old Molly, scratching at her ears as she rubbed her head against him. She might lick rocks and eat dirt, but she was always good for a hug. He loved her warmth, the scratchy wool on his cheek, the way she kept him company when the others wandered. She bleated softly when he finished hugging her. Zeth wiped the salty, dried sweat from his head. Maybe he shouldn't practice dancing so hard, but he knew he'd made a few missteps. Their father said that they were blessed as people who could add beneath the farmer's eyes. The perfect station. Not required to toil in the field, not forced to kill and subtract, allowed to tend the sheep and develop their talents. Free time was the greatest blessing in the world. Maybe that was why the men of the oceans sought to kill them and steal their sheep. It must make them angry to see such a perfect place as this. Those terrible men, like any petulant child, destroyed what they could not have. Do you think, Elid whispered, that the servants of the monasteries will ever come out and fight for us? Use the swords during one of the raids? Elid, he said, standing. The shamans would never subtract. Mother says they practice with the blades. I'd like to see that. Hold one. Why practice except to... They will fight the Voidbringers when they arrive, Zeth snapped. That is the reason. He glanced toward the ocean. Don't speak of the swords. If the outsiders realize the treasures of the monasteries... Ha! She said. I'd like to see them try to raid a monastery. I saw an honor bearer once. She could fly. She... Don't speak of it, he said. Not in the open. Elid rolled her eyes at him, still lying on the grass. What had she done with her flute? If father had to make yet another... She hated when he brought that up, so he forced himself to stay quiet. He pulled away from Molly, and then looked down at the ground she'd been licking.
Keep right,
To find
and then exit
another
right.
rock. Zeth recoiled, part shocked, part terrified. It was small,
Exit right.
only a handspan wide. It peeked up from the earth, perhaps revealed by last night's rain. Zeth put his fingers to his lips, backing away. Had he stepped on it while dancing? It was in the packed earth of the dancing ring. What should he do? This was the first stone he'd ever seen emerge. The ones in other villages and fields, carefully marked off and properly revered, had been there for years. "What's up with you?" Edith said. He simply gestured. She, perhaps sensing his level of concern, rose and walked over. As soon as she saw it, she gasped. They shared a glance. "I'll get father," Seth said, and started running.
25. Purposeful danger. The Almighty has given us the limbs to move and the minds to decide.
Keep right.
Let
Then
no
exit
monarch
right.
take away what was divinely granted. The heralds also
Exit
taught
right.
that all should have the sacred right of freedom of movement to
Keep
escape
left,
a bad
and then
situation,
turn left.
or simply to seek a brighter dawn. From The Way of Kings, 4th parable.
Turn left.
Walking into that safe house was like stepping into a memory, that of Shalon's first meeting with Maireys. There, she'd entered the basement of a building that shouldn't have had one. Here, after following Shade through the entryway, she headed down another set of stairs cut into the stone. They were smooth and well-shaped, dark with lichen, with some creme build-up at the corners of the steps, indicating that water had occasionally seeped in during the many years this place was unoccupied. Using a diamond for light, Shade took them down, and Shalon wondered at the ancients who had crafted it. Why would you build downward, risking flooding? The air was damp in here, though the stones weren't wet, and she soon smelled incense. At the bottom of the stairs, Shalon found the Alethi woman who had been sent to spy on Dalinar. The actor, an acolyte
Keep left,
Ghostblood,
and then turn
who
left.
had probably been teased with membership, like Shalon. The woman was studying Maireys' trophies, housed in a small room full of glass-fronted cases.
Turn left.
Each unlabeled artifact had its own shelf, lit by a handful of chips. A silvery horn or claw from some great beast. A chunk of light red crystal, like pink salt, though of a deeper, more vibrant color. A violet stone egg, partly crystalline, with silver swirling around its shell.
Get
A fat,
ready to turn
succulent leaf that pulsed red and seemed to radiate heat. A vial of pale sand she now recognized as having a very practical application.
Turn left.
Secrets, each stoking her hunger. She'd been strung along with the promise of a feast of answers, ideas, even dreams. Worlds full of people for her sketch collection.
Here we are. Kind
Shade
of on
let the
time.
newcomers linger to look at the trophies, but Shalon feigned indifference, leaning against the wall and glancing through the eye holes in the mask toward the glass case beside her. There, in the reflection on the glass, she glimpsed a shadowy figure with white holes for eyes. Ja-Anat, one of the Unmade, was here. She studied Shalon in turn, existing in this realm only as a reflection, then smiled in a knowing way and vanished. Storms. Did she know who Shalon really was? There wasn't time to wonder, as Shade waved the two newly arrived Ghostbloods into the next room. Shalon risked following, though Shade remained behind with the actor, and closed the door after them. The room beyond turned out to be large, bigger than the building above, though the ceiling was relatively low. It was entirely stone, with little furniture,
Let's get this
and
job
her door
done.
was in the northeast corner. The southern wall, to Shalon's left, maybe 40 feet away, was stacked with bales of hay, targets on each one. Maybe 20 feet ahead of her, 7 people clustered around a lone podium. They chatted softly, and Shalon's breath caught as she saw Maireys with the group, fiddling with some contraption. His very silhouette still intimidated her. He had a lean strength that never quite matched his fine clothing, which today was a coat, shirt, and trousers, with a ruffled portion of his shirt bursting out below the neck, bright red like blood from a slit throat. "Remember your breathing," Vale whispered. "Keep it up, kid." Shalon nodded absently and did her breathing exercises, calming her emotions. Half of the act of an imitation like this was about emotions and not drawing the wrong spren. She could do this. No need for anxiety. Maireys barely glanced over as the two newcomers joined 6 others. Shalon hung back, breathing calmingly and scanning the room, the mask sitting strangely on her face and blocking some of her field of vision. Where was Iyato? There.
Keep left.
She saw the
and then
woman
turn
watching
left.
the group from beside the north wall, giving her a full view of the room.
Turn left.
Short and masked, Iyato crouched on the stone ground. Others, particularly those from Alethi culture, might have mistaken her for a guard, but she was the master, and Maireys her second. Storms. Where Maireys was an overt, blatant kind of dangerous, always holding some sort of weapon, talking about hunting and death, Iyato was the quiet kind. The kind that watched from the shadows, ruminating on the sounds you'd make when
Keep right.
stabbed.
And then turn right.
Shalon stepped forward, because standing in the doorway would draw attention. She forced herself to
Turn
adopt
right.
the proper gait, and found her counterpart, the third masked off-worlder, watching from all the way across the room by the west wall. He prowled forward, passing a stand of burning incense, and approached the two newcomers where, Shalon could barely hear, he offered them a drink. The guards slunk to a bar set up against the east wall near Shalon and started mixing the drinks. This was a trained assassin, and Maireys was having him mix drinks?
Keep right.
Was
Then
this a
exit
way
right.
of intimidating the others? No. No, the ghost
Exit
bloods
right.
were relaxed. They just needed drinks, and the assassin was the one available to get them. "Ah," Maireys said, as the large contraption in his hands clicked. "There." He hefted it and placed a small, heavy arrow into it. The device was a kind of crossbow, though larger and bulkier than the ones Shalon had seen. Intrigued, Shalon stepped closer. Then she checked Iyato and the other masked off-worlder. They were watching not the device, but the people. Right. Shalon tried to do the same, moving along the north wall behind the group of people who faced the targets. "Maireys," said Aika, the Thalen trader in a skirt and vest. "You said this meeting was urgent. Why are you playing with a new toy while we have drinks?" "Had to wait for stragglers, stolen purse," he said with a smile. "And a good drink, well studied, is an excellent start to any difficult conversation." "Feels strange," said the other Thalen, "to have so many of us together. How long has it been?" "Since the briefing on the Everstorm," said the man wearing the patterned regalia of an Azish vizier. "The year before it arrived. Honestly, I've missed you all. Maireys, we have Oathgates now. We should meet more often." "Meeting is dangerous," Maireys noted, raising the crossbow to sight at one of the targets. "Maireys, love," said a woman, Vaden like Shalon by her accent. "You enjoy danger, don't you?" Shalon took a memory of her. Aside from the vizier, she was the only one of the group not in Hoyd's stack of drawings. "I enjoy purposeful danger, Icy Tongue," Maireys said. Shalon knew he had a nickname for everyone, not a code name, just a quirk of his. danger with value and lessons. Foolhardy danger without purpose is a waste. A whorehouse for the emotions. He triggered the crossbow, which shot the larger-than-average bolt into one of the hay bales. You missed the center, Moraes, one of the others said. Hence the practice, Moraes said, reloading the device. As the assassin delivered drinks, Shallan worried what she was expected to do. Hopefully not fetch drinks. If she had to ask someone their preference, she didn't like her chances of imitating Yatel's accent, which she'd heard only a few times. Best for her to avoid saying anything. She prowled along the wall, smoke from one
Keep
incense
right,
burner
then
wafting
exit
in her
right.
wake. Yatel glanced at her. Panic erupted in Shallan's
Exit
chest,
right.
like daggers suddenly slid between her ribs. Calm, Vale reminded. She did her best, maintaining her poise, and picked a spot, then squatted, mimicking Iyatel's posture. Moving had drawn attention, so she determined to stay still. Blessedly, that seemed the right move. Iyatel's attention immediately returned to the group, and the other assassins settled back against the west wall and watched with folded arms. Is this device the reason we're all here? Risking discovery, Moraes? Icy Tongue asked, sipping her drink. No, he said, raising the weapon once more. This is merely a diversion. He released and hit the target, though not at the center. Any of you ever used one of these? Crossbow, the Azish man said. Common guardsman weapon. No, Icy Tongue said. That's a Thalen hand ballista, heavier than a normal crossbow, intended to deliver a payload. Exactly, Moraes said, nodding to her. They were developed to carry oil or a flaming brand to set fire to enemy sails. Never been terribly effective, unfortunately, but they're enjoyed by some enthusiasts. My father had a few when I was young. He held up the device, studying it. A modern weapon, relying on mechanical strength, rather than strength of arm. It's obviously difficult to aim, one of the others said. I have trouble seeing why you're so interested in it. Moraes casually loaded another bolt. Shallan studied him from where she crouched. His actions always had a purpose. What was the lesson here? Storms. Even when he wasn't watching her, she felt intimidated by him. Worse, she felt an icy chill at the nape of her neck, and, despite trying not to, glanced at Iyatel, who had been looking in her direction. Shallan glanced away
Keep right,
immediately,
then
breathing
exit
as
right.
calmly as she could. An anxiety spren appeared anyway, a twisting black cross.
Exit right.
Did Iyatel suspect? The spren wasn't an immediate tell, as
Turn
one
right.
could come because you were worried about basically anything, but storms. Storms, storms, storms. These were experts in the very arts that Shallan, as Vale, had pretended to know. Sweat ran down her face, and the mask suddenly felt heavy and suffocating. Her breath kept getting caught, the heat of it puffing around her cheeks and leaving her skin damp. She wanted to rip the mask free. Did you notice? Vale said. Then he left his trouser leg tucked into his sock. Shallan glanced again at Moraes, and it was true. In dressing, he'd let his right sock catch the back of his trouser leg. In the face of her panic, it was an almost comical detail. Vale chuckled. It's just a person, Shallan. They all are. How does Moraes try to control you? Through intimidation, she whispered. Intimidation, secrets, and an air of mystery. And if you refuse to give him any of those person. Iato, too. People, and highly confident ones, who could make mistakes. They wouldn't expect Shalon to be here, would never assume her capable of taking the face of one of their best. Even the most skilled swordswoman, Radiant said, can lose a duel. They might be good, but if they suspected you, they'd have done something by now. You're doing it. You're doing it, Vane said. I mean, look how silly he is. He really wasn't. It was a small mistake, one people commonly made. And she was in over her head, she knew. But this had to be done. And that little mistake Moraes had made, it was a sign that he was flawed. Shalon chuckled softly, and the anxiety spren vanished away. Did you know, Moraes said to the others, that on some worlds the crossbow became the default weapon for an entire era of warfare? While the weapon is generally slower to reload, it requires less training to use than a bow. With the right design, it can pierce steel. So instead of the archer who practices all their life, or the regal light eyes in plate armor, such battlefields are ruled by the farmers with 2 months' training and a technological advantage. Until a shard-bearer marches through their ranks and lays waste to the whole lot, said the man in the Alethi uniform. You know Aladar tried crossbowman ranks once. Sure, they're powerful, but slow. Best used with a full pike block for support. And if there's one man in plate on the other side, those crossbowmen draw him like rain draws vines. Interesting words, Che.
Go straight.
Moraes said, sighting with his hand ballista and loosing again. Words spoken with the wisdom of the past, excellent at teaching us to deal with the world as it has existed, and only as it has existed. He looked to Iato, who gestured for him to continue. He set the ballista down and opened the front of the podium. A glowing sphere spren floated out, much like the Seon that Shalon had discovered in her communication box. It changed shape, becoming an older man's face with mustaches. Wait, did she recognize him? Tell them, Moraes commanded. We found Rastaris, said the floating, glowing head. He told us and Shalon the details. Mishram's prison is hidden in the spiritual realm. Storms! That was Felt, one of Aderlin's soldiers. Coldness enveloped Shalon, accompanied by an overwhelming sense of disconnect. Felt was a spy. Felt was a ghost blood. It was good no one was currently looking at her, because she couldn't keep the small shock spren away. All that time she'd spent trying to find the spy, an entire trip through Shadesmar, only to decide she was herself the spy, while Moraes had sent a backup. Of course he had. Storms. She felt suddenly violated, knowing Felt had been watching all along. That's the important bit, Felt continued. Melee has been chatting with Rastaris, who has all kinds of things to say once you press him. Melee's pretty fed up with him, since little of it seems relevant, but I'm taking notes anyway. Melee, the seal. Wait, thank you, Moraes said. Melee and you have done well. You will be compensated. Melee was a ghost blood too? It certainly sounded that way. On one hand, Shalon's sense of betrayal deepened, but on the other, she was relieved. The Spren had put up quite an act of being a frightened prisoner, but if that wasn't the
Go
case,
straight.
then maybe Shalon didn't have to feel so bad for her. I don't want your rusting coin, Maraise, Felt said. I never wanted any part of any of this, though Ailey specifically asked me to tell you she wants a pony. I think she might be joking. Maraise smiled. Keep the herald captive. Further instructions will come. He made a gesture, and the face faded back to a glowing sphere, which hid in the podium again. The prison is in the spiritual realm, one of the group said, so it's impossible to reach. Hardly, Maraise said. The Yatal and I received intel from a very special contact yesterday, indicating that if we watched Dalinar, we would have a chance to enter the spiritual realm. We thought we might need our newest recruit to nudge him into it, but that wasn't necessary. Dalinar met with Cultivation herself, who urged him to seek Honor's power. He will be stepping into the spiritual realm soon, and Yatal and I will follow. Until we return, Zora, this cell is yours. You will take the Sion and report directly to Master Thydakar. The Azish Vizier nodded. The Thaylen woman he'd called Stolen Purse folded her arms. You've never specifically left someone else in charge before. This is true, Maraise said, calmly reloading his hand ballista. So, you think this is dangerous? The woman continued. I know it is, Maraise said. We might not return, or if we do, hundreds of years could have passed here. But we will find Mishram's prison. Wait, said Icy-Tongue. Maraise, how does this help Master Thydakar's plans? Maraise didn't reply. Instead, sighting his target and loosing, he finally hit the red center circle. We should be working on our plan, Icy-Tongue said, to transport Stormlight off-world, now that we know it can be blanked of identity and transferred between realms.
Keep left.
How does chasing
then
down some
continue straight.
ancient spren further Master Thydakar's orders to provide him a renewable source of
Go
investiture?
straight.
Shallan leaned forward. She'd already known that the Ghost Bloods wanted the power of the Radiance and the versatility of Stormlight. That explained a great deal, such as, for example, recruiting Shallan. But there was more. Why was he so interested in Mishram? She reached into her sleeve, fingering the span ring she'd hidden in there, strapped to her arm. She sent 3 quick flashes, a warning to the others to be ready, but not to come quite yet. She was close. Maraise didn't answer. He readied his weapon for another shot, though he selected a bolt with a gemstone affixed to it, near the head. What did they say? That these hand ballistas were designed to deliver a larger than normal payload? Oh, storms. A gemstone by itself was meaningless, but if he managed to get hold of the anti-stormlight that Navani had developed in Shallan's absence, he launched the bolt and hit the target straight on. The wisdom of the past is excellent at teaching us to deal with the world as it has existed, and only as it has existed. Maraise wasn't showing affection for an old, obsolete piece of technology. He was practicing with a weapon that suddenly could be used to kill Radiants and their spread. Once in the spiritual realm, Maraise said, Yatal and I will watch Dalinar. If we stay close to
At the
him,
roundabout.
most likely
Take the
he will
second
lead us
exit.
to the prison. How can you know that? Icy-Tongue asked. Because I do, he said. Master Thydakar
Exit
has
now.
approved this course, and you 8 will lead, in our absence. That is all you need know. Pardon, said Icy-Tongue, but we're Ghost Bloods. No secrets, Maraise. Those are the rules. Master Thydakar's actions, Maraise said,
Keep
Prove
right.
he does not
and then
believe
turn right.
in this rule. Sometimes information is dangerous and must be kept sheathed like a fine
Turn
blade.
right.
Shallan leaned forward farther, but then caught something from the corner of her eye. Iato was in motion. The short woman crossed the room and stooped beside Shallan, where she whispered something in a language that Shallan did not recognize.
Dalinar sat with Navani in the garden chamber, both of them in chairs at the center, facing one another. He held her hands, vines moving around them without wind or touch. Navani said they were dancing to rhythms Dalinar couldn't hear. "Well," he asked, "what do you think?" "I don't know, Dalinar," she said, squeezing his hands. "What happens if this works?
Keep left.
Will I lose
then
you?
turn left.
If I were to ascend to honor," Dalinar said, "I don't think you'd lose me. Cultivation
left.
spoke to me earlier, and according to Ash, honor often interacted with the heralds." "I don't mean losing your presence,"
This
she
is
said.
where it ends.
"I mean losing you, your love, your humanity. I don't want to be selfish, and we will do what the world needs. But I have to ask, what will it mean, Dalinar? And does it have to be you?" He didn't know the answer to either question. They both leaned forward, him resting his forehead on hers, contemplating, deciding. Beerspren wiggled out of the stones around his feet. "All this time," he whispered, "I've been trying to become a better person, Navani. Through the course of it, I've discovered terrifying truths, and I've shared them with the world. That our god died millennia ago. That humankind stole this world from those who owned it. Answers that once were easy, now prove difficult. I am scared of this step, but I want to provide answers again regardless. I feel that something has been guiding me all this time. Something I can't explain. Something beyond honor. I know someone has to step up and do this. The contest isn't enough. There's more. And I think I'm the only one who can find out what it is."
Ready to roll.
"I spent a great deal of time searching for how to become a stronger bondsmith. I think that was a step toward a greater truth of what I actually need to become." She gripped his hands, and he loved her for the way she gave his words some thought and didn't contradict him immediately, but also for the way she didn't immediately agree. Wit finally returned, slipping in. Dalinar and Navani pulled back from each other, and he could see the concern in her eyes. "Love," he said,